We talked a little bit about who the first judge was. We just talked about this. Who was the first judge of Israel? Moses. All right. Does anybody know who came after Moses?
David.
No, he was a king.
No.
Eli. Joseph. It starts with a J. It's so close. No. Yes, Joshua. That's right. So, it's Joshua. It goes from Moses and then Joshua, and then we start the book of Judges. And the beginning of Judges describe how Joshua spent his final days and all those things. And after Joshua's death, Israel turned into this period that was extremely chaotic and turbulent, and it was marked by a spiritual decline. So they were declining spiritually as a society. And it was an extremely lawless time where the people of Israel were basically living like people without laws. And the people lacked godly leadership. And because of that, they strayed away from God's commandments. If we look at lack of leadership, not just in the spiritual context, but in the context of this world too, does anybody know what happened in Korea at the beginning of, not at the beginning, but sort of last year to the beginning of this year and still continues on right now? Yeah.
War.
Not war. No, nothing to do with war.
In Korea?
Yeah, in Korea.
Depends on which Korea.
South Korea.
Oh. I don't know how to really detail it. It's a denomination where they're very strict.
Well, not Christian. It's politics. Politics.
Never mind.
So basically what happened in Korea was that the president's wife believes in this occultic practices. So she was consulting with basically Eastern equivalent of witches to decide the future of the country. So she would go and consult and say, hey, my husband wants to do this. What do you think? And the husband would also write all these spells on his palms so that he would be protected from the bad guys or whatever. And they found out about this and they impeached the guy because he was just way too crazy. And they had no leadership. And it was a chaotic time. So they impeached them and they elected another president who's even worse than the previous guy. So now the guy who's president of Korea, he's just, and I'm using the Korea example because I think that probably none of you guys really keep up too much with Korean politics and have no formed opinions about it. But, basically that's what happened. And this is what happens when there's lack of political leadership, right? All sorts of no accountability, no nothing. And the thing is that in the old times in Israel, this sense of political figures and all those things were also connected with religious figures. Politics and religion always went hand in hand in the Bible. So this period illustrates the critical need for Israel to have judges because they had no kings back then. And God is the one who appointed leaders who would restore the order that was lost and uphold justice and call Israel back to faithfulness. Now, if we look at today's main passage, which is from Judges chapter 2, verse 16 to 19, we see that Israel continuously rebelled against God, and then they went into a time of peace because God rescued them out, and then they rebelled against God again, and they worshipped other gods. God kept on showing up and showing his mercy to deliver them from oppression, spiritual and political. And this demonstrates God's patience and mercy even when his people are undeserving of the said grace and rescuing, right? Imagine if you got your friends out of trouble, right? And then they repeat the same mistake again, and you have to vouch for this person again, and then they make the same mistake again, and you vouch for them again. Imagine that happening over and over again. You would eventually give up, right?
No.
No, you wouldn't.
For my best friends, that wouldn't.
Most people will probably give up after a while because it's mentally just unhealthy, right?
Yeah, I would get what's good donation and with back together.
Yeah, until they get their act together, right? But God didn't do that. And the original language here, the Hebrew word for raised up is nakam. Actually, if you pronounce it correctly, it's naham. It conveys God's active intervention as a just person, but not just a just person, but he looks like a person whose job it is to rescue. And it also means that God ordained them. Does anybody know what it means to be ordained? Like when you're ordained the pastor. Yeah. Ben.
I was gonna say like you became a basket.
You become a pastor. People lay their hands on you and ordain you. That's what it means. It's like you laid your hands on top of their head. So it's like God giving these judges their blessings by ordaining them. And the term judge, it's actually the word shafat. It signifies, and I assume, I don't know if this is true, but I assume that this word is somehow related with shepherd as well. It kind of sounds like it, but I might be wrong. I haven't checked up on that. But the term judges means shafat, and it's another word describing deliverer or leader. And it is also a person who executes justice. It's like the judge of today. When you go to court, right? A judge is the one who carries out the sentencing, right? He's the one who executes justice. And God is the one who executes divine justice. God's justice includes all of his compassion. Even when human beings, even when I fail God, right? And we oftentimes look at the Israelites and we see them going in this perpetual cycle of sin and then needing rescue from God, and God rescues them, and then they fall into sin again. And we see this perpetual cycle, and we can point fingers and say, like, how on earth do they not get it yet, right? I mean, I do that all the time. We see the kings of Israel repeating the same sins as their forefathers, and they don't get rid of the high places. We'll talk about that when we talk about kings, and God brings out about his judgment because of those reasons. And you're like, just read a history book and you'll know where this path leads. But they do it over and over again, right? And when we look at our lives, right, who here commits new sin every time they sin?
You have to sin in order to sin. It's a double whammy.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is that, okay, think of the times when you sin. You don't need to say what sin or whatever, just think of it. Are all those times the same sin, or are all those times different sin? I'm going to guarantee that most of it is a repeating sin that you commit over and over again, right? You don't go steal just once, and then you go out and commit adultery once, and then you go out and do something you're not supposed to once, right? If you struggle with lust, you're gonna keep struggling with lust, right? You're gonna keep falling into that sin. Just like how the Israelites kept on falling back into the same sin. So this whole idea of Israelites falling back into their old sins, and it seems like time is repeating itself, it's actually a reflection on how we as Christians fall back into our old selves too. Anyway, the deliverance was temporary because Israelites kept on going back to their old sins, just like I said, and their hearts were quickly hardened. They were not soft. And does anybody know what it means to have a hardened heart versus a soft heart?
A what? With a soft heart?
Yeah. Go ahead, Ben.
From my understanding, a soft heart is someone that will understand and can empathize, and someone with a hardened heart is kind of like dark,
the opposite of that. Like they don't really sympathize with you,
Yeah.
and
So
it's not reveal their own stuff.
think about a very soft pillow. What happens to it when you push it? It shapes into whatever you're pushing down with, right?
That memory foam pillow. Yeah. Oh, I love it.
Yeah. What happens if you push down on a rock? Nothing happens, right? So it's like that. When God presses on your heart, God makes an impression on your heart. That's what it means to have a soft heart. When you have a hard heart, it's like a stone. No matter how much you try to push, it's not going to do anything. Eventually, what will happen is going to break it, right? That's why we need our hearts. Do you guys know that worship song that goes, "Break my heart for what breaks yours"? Break my heart for what breaks yours.
Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me.
So yeah, basically, hardened hearts need to be broken in order to become soft hearts again. But the point is that Israelites kept on hardening their hearts. So let's talk about the consequence of this. So Judges chapter 21, verse 25. Anybody want to go there and read it for us? Judges chapter 21, verse 25. Yeah. Judges 21, verse 25. You want to go there? Oh, yeah.
In those days, Israel had no king. All the people did whatever seemed right in their own eyes.
And the king here it is talking about the necessity of kings, king of Israel, but it's also talking about God. It's basically saying that there was no God in Israeli people's lives. So here's a danger of a society without God-ordained leadership. And this was talking about both political and religious, but in the context of today, it's more so talking about religious leadership. So without reverence, without respect for God's law and accountable leadership, society tends to descend into chaos and moral relativism. Anybody know what the definition of moral relativism is?
Moral is to keep something sacred to you.
Yes, and then relativism is?
There's like trying to, depending on like like your situation or like
Eye of the beholder, basically, right?
yeah.
So relativism can sometimes be a good thing. And I'll share what this means, right? Okay, what is the meaning of the gesture I'm doing? What is the meaning of this gesture?
You're doing something good.
You did something good, right? Anybody know what this in Bangladesh is? It's the same thing as if I were to point my middle finger at you. In Bangladesh.
Like how this is
England.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, in England, is that the...
Yeah, just like everything is a middle finger. Yes. So relativism can sometimes be beneficial, but when it becomes moral relativism, then what happens is what's right or wrong, it just depends on the person's feelings, right? That's what moral relativism is. And we descend into this idea that there's no right and wrong. It just depends on what you feel like doing. If you feel like hurting somebody, you can go and hurt somebody. If you feel like sleeping around with anybody and everybody you want, then that's okay because you're not hurting anybody, right? That's moral relativism. And it's your flesh. Yeah, that's your flesh. And but imagine if there was no authority figure. Like, who's to say that's wrong, right? So this is why we need godly authority today. And we need that. Yes, we do need that in government too, but we need that in church as well. So that's why we need to pray for our leaders, that our leaders will be holy as well. If everybody was doing what was it right in their own eyes, just like how we saw in the text that Mason just read, what's going to happen to this world? Where is the sense of what's right and wrong going to come from? Where is it going to come from?
Or us?
Our eyes, right? So imagine there's a cannibalistic. Like. So if there's a cannibalistic tribe, right? Is cannibalism wrong or right? It's wrong, right? But if everybody does what is right in their own eyes, who's to say that they're wrong, right? So there's no sense of morals. There's no standard. And to prevent from confusion and immoral behavior, God commanded a judicial system that was grounded by His law. All right, please pay attention. And you're good. Just please put away your phones and please concentrate on the lesson. Deuteronomy chapter 17, verse 8 and 9, and I actually have this pulled up, so I'm gonna read it. It says, if cases, and this is God instructing Moses on how to judge his people. It says, if cases come before your courts and that are too difficult for you to judge, whether it's bloodshed, lawsuits, or assaults, take them to the place the Lord your God will choose. Go to the Levitical priests and to judge who is in office at that time. This is talking about the judge. Inquire of them and they will give you the verdict. So in the Israeli times, in the biblical times, the Israelis went to judges to decide what was right and wrong. And how the judge would do this is they would spend time in prayer and ask God for discernment. And it was emphasizing submission to God's word through these leaders, right? Yes, you can also go to God directly, but they would go to the leaders and they would ask them to discern what is right and wrong. And the Hebrew roots, the word here to take them to the leaders is the same word, shafat, which is meaning a judge, deliverer, and every other definition that I described earlier that the original language uses. God's provision of judges ensures justice according to His standards in the Old Testament. It's not about human preference. It's not about what I feel is right or wrong. And it's not about what you feel like doing. Because I feel like doing lots of things that I shouldn't do, right? Somebody cuts me off in the highway. What do I want to do, right? I want to chase them down. I want to chase them down and crash into them, right? So much anger, right? But
Yeah, honestly, don't care.
well, that's good. You have a much better personality than I. But
I'm just like, alright, whatever. Oh well, you already did it. Well, bro.
you already did it, but I can also do it.
But what's the point?
But
We're all in.
the point is that I'm angry. No,
It happens. You can't change anything about what happened in the past.
but you can change their future and send them to the hospital. Just kidding. No,
And myself.
guys, please know that I'm joking. Okay, for the record, I'm joking. Never ever do that, and I would never do that either. But it is God's standards, not whatever you feel like doing. That's what I'm trying to say, right? It's not about what you feel like doing. It's not about what I feel like doing. It's not about what people feel like doing. It's God's standards. And it's encouraging the readers of the original Judges book to seek and submit to the just leadership. Now, remember, there were judges of Israel that were not just. Remember Eli, the guy who Samuel worked under? His sons were also judges, but they were sleeping around with the woman in the courts, in God's temple. And so they were judges, but they were not just judges. So it's asking us to submit to just leadership while also cultivating personal integrity aligned with God's standards. And also it's calling us to pray for our leaders that they will have integrity and to align ourselves with God's standards. That includes Pastor Ben, that includes Mason, and that includes me. So guys, you guys need to seriously be praying for all the church leadership that we will be aligning ourselves with God. But God is just, even though He brings out judgment. I'll illustrate this with a story. There was a murderer who had no family and no money for lawyers or nobody to represent him and all of that. And because he was so poor, even though he committed murder, he was poor, so he hadn't eaten in a couple of days. So the judge actually sentenced him to life because capital punishment in this country was not legal. But he gave him his own packed lunch that his wife gave him to eat for his own lunch. He shared that with the murderer. Yeah, no, he shared that with the murderer because the murderer hadn't eaten anything all day. But he still sentenced him to life in prison, right?
Without parole.
Without parole. So I don't know about without parole. I'm just adding. You added that. So this is the sense that God, yes, God is just. And yes, He will keep you accountable. But there's a sense of grace that comes with that. Having seen the need, mercy, and mandate for judges, we have to consider how God established the very first judge, which we will be doing starting next week with the call of Samuel. So we'll go through a couple of weeks on Samuel and then a couple of weeks on Joshua, who were the first two judges of Israel, and we'll go through the book of Judges itself. What did we talk about today? We talked about the fact that we need godly judges who balance justice and mercy, as shown by Israel's repeated failure and God's faithfulness, even with their failures. Leadership matters deeply, and keeping ourselves holy in leadership is extremely necessary, and it is something that we should all strive to do, and it's something that you guys should pray for as well. And true leadership comes from submission to God's law. So, and we also have to think about the fact that you guys are Christians, right? And you have friends who are non-Christians. Then that means that you are also a leader in other people's lives. And so you have to think about how you can have that godly authority in your circles too. I'm not telling you guys to go out and call people out and say, hey, what you're doing there is wrong, like turn back to it. I'm not trying to say that, but what I am trying to say is that you have to keep yourself accountable. It's to keep each other accountable, which I'm so glad that Mason is doing. And you have to strive to be holy in all aspects of your life so that you can be a leader that is worthy to be called a leader. So as I said, next week, we're going to explore Moses and as the first divinely appointed judge of Israel, who was mandated by God's justice and mercy for the nation of Israel. God's justice requires godly judges, which also means that God requires you to be godly. And you need to be an example to your friends so that your life can be an example enough that through your life, many may be saved and have mercy shown in their lives. And you have to uphold the law of God into your life so that you can first bring order and hope into your life and to the people around you as well.